There we go. Well, hello everybody. I can't see everyone, but I hope you're there. I've got some help with uh, all the technical aspects of hosting and co-hosting with Katie Hart-Potapoff, Dr. Katie Hart-Potapoff, who is assisting us today. And Ian and I, as co-conveners of Place International, are absolutely delighted to welcome two of our speakers today who are speaking to us from quite a distance. We're absolutely delighted. So we have first up, well, together, actually, it's not a first up, it's a tag team today. So we have working together as collaborators and co-presenters Dr. Tarsh Bates and Susan Hauri-Downing. Um, I would like to just introduce very briefly, ever so briefly, Tarsh, who is an artist, researcher, educator, interested in the transfer of knowledge and experience between bodies, environment, and culture. And she works particularly with work in olfaction. So she's going to speak to us about some of that today. And secondly, I would like to introduce you to Sue Hauri-Downing, who is an artist and an eco-social worker. She works at the intersection of social work and artistic methodologies and practices focusing on urban ecological diversity, biocultural diversity, solastalgia, grief and loss, and the intricacy of interspecies relationship. So they collaborate together, and I'm going to let them explain more details about their background, what's brought them to their project, and what they're engaged in. It's absolutely fascinating. I'm sure you'll agree. So the idea is that they'll speak for maybe about 35, 40 minutes. They're going to allow enough time at the end so that we can have really good, juicy questions and answers and just dig into this. But it'll be a pleasure to hear what you have to say. So, Tarsh and Sue, over to you both.
Thank you so much, Mary. I'm just going to start the
The
PowerPoint.
sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tash. Um, so we'd like to start by acknowledging that today we're presenting from Wajak Noongar Boodja in Australia, where sovereignty was never ceded, and Sápmi, the lands of the Sami people in Sweden. We really want to give a huge thanks to Mary for inviting us to present today and the Place Network and all of you for listening. And we also really appreciate the support we have from Arts, the Umeo Institute of Design, and the Department of Creative Industries and Tourism and Sport here in Western Australia. And finally, Spaced for currently supporting our collaborative practice and embedding it here in Western Australia. Go to the next slide. I'll invite Tash to guide you through.
So I'd like you to close your eyes or soften your focus. Gently breathe out. Gently breathe in. Gently breathe out. Gently inhale 400 milliliters of air. Gently exhale 400 milliliters of air. Gently inhale 400 milliliters of air. What can you sense? Gently exhale 400 milliliters of air. Sniff deeply. What can you sense? Exhale. Bring your hand to your face. Inhale 400 milliliters of air. What can you sense? Exhale 400 milliliters of air. Sniff deeply. What can you sense? Exhale. Drop your hand from your face. Inhale 400 milliliters of air. Who are you breathing in? Exhale 400 milliliters of air. Who are you breathing out? Gently inhale 400 milliliters of air. Gently exhale 400 milliliters of air. Gently breathe in. Gently breathe out. Open your eyes and refocus.
I'm Sue. I was born on Causa land and what is now known as South Africa, and I come from a long line of colonizers. And I now live on stolen Whadjuk Noongar Boodja here in Perth, Western Australia. And thank you for that lovely introduction, Mary. Yeah, so as she mentioned, I'm an artist and a social worker, and my practice is really influenced by the interconnection of social and environmental justice, which is the foundation of eco-social work. So I use nature-based interventions and artist therapy to work with people to explore their relationship with nature, develop eco-literacy, address ecological distress, grief, and loss. And I organize bereavement walks and other types of workshops that connect us with the natural systems that support us. And all of it feeds into my art practice.
So I'm Tarsh. I was born in Mununjilibo Desert, Ugambe, Queensland, grew up in Matamata, Aotearoa, New Zealand, and have lived for the last 35 years in Perth, Whadjuk Noongar Boodja, southwestern Australia. I recently, well, 2 years ago now, moved to Umeå Sápmi, the lands of the Sami people in northern Sweden. My creative practice scavenges from various disciplines, and I am particularly interested in the aesthetics of interspecies communications and queer ecologies.
In the long, dark winters across Sápmi, reindeer move through the forests, attracted by the smells of lichen buried under the layers of snow. However, climate change has caused unpredictable snow melts. Sorry, I just lost you then. 1 second. And the melted snow freezes into ice, covering the lichen. The volatile chemicals released by the lichen don't diffuse through the ice, and reindeer starve. These shifts in olfactory ecologies have had a profound effect on multi-species migration, economies, and culture. Inspired by the story of olfactory metabolisms, we began an artistic research collaboration that explores the role of smells in more than human placemaking and how changes in smells of places to which we belong or which have claimed us affect our connections to those places. Tarsha and I have a mutual interest in navigating our more than human responsibilities, and we have long been inspired by Glenn Albrick's term solastalgia, which he uses to describe the distress experience when environments change around us, particularly those to which we belong or have strong emotional attachments. And it's particularly interesting for us because solastalgia explicitly connects feelings of distress and disempowerment with changes and losses caused by ecological destruction in familiar and cherished environments that threaten individual and community senses of identity, place, belonging, control, and comfort. Importantly, solastalgia acknowledges the active process of ecological degradation, destruction, and devastation. Lighted by commonly used terms such as climate grief or ecological loss, solastalgia also recognizes the relationality between individuals and communities, human and otherwise, and emphasizes the importance of home or place. We wonder if reindeer feel solastalgia when they can't smell the lichen. Smell chemicals are volatile and many are water soluble, which means they're sensitive to temperature, humidity, and pH. Therefore, atmospheric and climatic shifts, changes in land use and water regimes, and ocean acidification influence their presence, volatility, and movements. altering behaviors and orientations of critters within ecosystems. We are interested in how our sense of belonging and connection to place changes when the smells of our place change, and what it might mean to preserve place-based smells if the place no longer exists. Here are some examples of more than human olfactory relations affected by environmental change. Blue petrels are southern pelagic birds which locate food by tracking the smell of DMS, a sulfurous compound emitted by algae when eaten by krill and other crustaceans. The algae that emits DMS also coats plastic marine litter, which the birds confuse for krill and ingest the plastic. These birds are nearly 6 times more likely to eat plastic than other pelagic birds. You can see there's a beautiful picture of a sexually deceptive orchid with a wasp. The orchid flowers produce a volatile chemical that is identical to the pheromones produced by female wasps. This chemical attracts male wasps, which transfer pollen between the orchid. The wasps have sex with the flower. These relationships are species specific, usually restricted to a single orchid and wasp species. Only one species of wasp can pollinate one species of orchids, and their habitats are threatened by urbanization, industrial and agricultural practices, and climate change. Mold, fungi, and bacteria living in soil, such as streptomyces and as swallowing my tongue, and Cetomyces, emit geosmin following rain, which is a strong attractant for pregnant mosquitoes. Increasing and unpredictable rainfall and warming temperatures increase the production of geosmin from dry soils and cold regions, attracting and promoting mosquito breeding, potentially introducing diseases carried by mosquitoes to the region. And a final example is ocean acidification that reduces the ability of odorants to bind to the clownfish's, for example, here, olfactory receptors, reducing their ability to detect the smell of leaves floating in the water, which they use to locate their preferred habitats of vegetated islands surrounded by reefs, obviously influencing reproduction and other habitats. So we really wanted to start to find out if olfactory placemaking and solastalgia are important to humans. And we were able a couple of years ago to start investigating that in a brief residency at Pika in Perth. We created the Sense of Solastalgia workshop where we invited participants to reflect on eco-smell memories, histories, contribute biomatter that has a smell of significant environments to a communal steam distillation, which combines and extracts a unique environmental fragrant water, which every participant could leave with afterwards. We would also take people on smell walks to catch, hunt, and imagine eco smells. So we found out that it is a thing. Absolutely. We had many, many interesting conversations, and olfactory solastalgia is absolutely a thing. And we began to do a series of field distillation performances that collect and preserve the sense of changing, disappearing, and lost environments. One example would be for the UN World Environmental Day in 2024. We conducted a simultaneous live stream distillation in Perth here with myself and Neen Schwartz, and in Tartu, Estonia, with Tarsh and Linda Knight. In Perth, we created fragrant hydrosols from trees within a quarantine zone affected by the polyvagus shot hole borer, which is an exotic beetle threatening the urban forest. And at the time, I know it's really well spread over the globe, but it was a very new emerging threat here. And the state's response was met with public and local government distrust. When an infestation was detected, um, the host trees were eradicated, and in some areas, healthy trees of the same species within a designated radius were also removed. And some community members argued that a greater investment in research was needed alongside this immediate action to ensure the best possible decisions for preserving tree life. In Tartu, Tarsh and Linda distilled plants from a city meadow that had been rewilded by curated biodiversity Tartu. And obviously, as you guys would be probably very well aware, these meadow species are really crucial to sustaining urban biodiversity, and they're obviously increasingly under threat across Europe from development, intensive land management, shifting climate conditions. And I think, yeah, I think people are learning more and more about that also in the general public. So using these steam distillations to extract odorants from the plant material, we transformed loss into scent, creating a fragrant ritual of grief and hope.
So we also conducted some field distillations and live performances in Edinburgh at the Royal Botanical Gardens as part of the Smell of Scotland project in September of 2025. And we have written about that distillation and workshop, and another workshop which we held in Edinburgh a few months before, and we've written about that in a forthcoming paper in the Scottish Historical Review, and we can provide um, links to that if anybody's interested. And I also was lucky enough to travel to the north of Sapmi, Swedish Sapmi anyway, and to do a field distillation in a melting permafrost mere or bog or wetland mire in that area in autumn of last year. And the image on the right, my right, hopefully your right as well, is a hole that was dug through the peat, which had previously been permafrost but is now melted down to the permafrost layer, the frozen layer. And we took samples of that frozen layer and distilled the scent of those, and then also the scent of the peat and botanicals in the area. And most recently, I did a field distillation in the winter forest in Umeo, which is where I live right now, to think about how smells change during seasons, and to try and capture some of the smells that the reindeer um, potentially are smelling. We're gathering a substantial archive of eco scents, a somewhat futile gesture because the smells evaporate over time and change, and the more you open them, the more they disappear. To better understand the lichen reindeer ice relations, we developed the project There's No Future in Ice, which we presented about at the Relate North conference last year, at the end of 2025, which is where we met Mary. And yeah, that was a wonderful conference, actually. So during this project, we collected water from the Ume Elven, the river that runs through Umea Sapmi. And we also collected small quantities of lichen or wren larvae from the forest around Umea. Using the still, we distilled these into fragrant lichen water, which we froze into ice sculptures. During an interdisciplinary performance lecture hosted by myself, called Volatile Ecologies, with co-panelists artist Mari Keski-Korsu and Sue, Sami archaeologist Marcus Fjellstrom, and ecologist Tim Horstkotter, we invited audience members to hold the frozen lichen cups in their hands as they listened to a discussion about the effects of overconsumption on lichen, ice, and reindeer relations. We talked about the impacts and implications of climate and environmental change, the green transition, mining, tourism, urbanization, forestry on Sapmi and its people. We invited people to hold the frozen cups and bear the pain of the ice, a temporary discomfort. The warmth of their hands melted the cups, releasing lichen fragrance into the room, while Mari spoke of her artistic practice walking with permafrost. Marcus spoke of ancient reindeer diets and glacial terraforming. Tim of the pressures faced by Sapmi ecologies and Sami herders, and Sue of our project. Mari guided us through a ritual of culpability, burning Baltic amber, Bryoria lichen, and tull, or Scots pine, on rocks collected from Umeo. We followed the smoke through time, connecting us to the sky, water, and land of Sapmi, and offering apologies. We distributed the ice sculptures around Umeo as votive offerings, which melted in the spring, leaving a trace of lichen smell and the lichen. We held the ice sculptures, and the heat from our hands melted them, liberating the lichen and its smells, and acknowledging our culpability. We left, we left offerings in the forest around Umeo, humble if futile gestures of culpability, hope, and return. And most recently, we have been working to collect and archive the smell stories of a small farming town, Beverley, in the wheat belt region of Western Australia, Belladong Noongar Budja, as part of the Spaced Circular Economies artistic project. We ran a series of individually tailored workshops with diverse community groups who foster ecological engagement across the town and care for Budja, and other community members from high school students to aged care residents and the community garden. Together, participants explored and discovered the distinctive sense of Beverley, sharing their memories, stories, and sensory experiences that connect them to that place. These are a few images of us working to understand through field distillation some of the more than human smell relations in Beverley, and to extract and preserve the scents of the river and the materials that flow through that place. So the reason we use art to do this, and to use olfactory art in particular, even though it is aesthetically challenging, um, as some of you know, being artists, art is highly evocative. It engages our senses and is crucial for understanding affective, emotional, and embodied experiences of the world. It helps us connect us with past, present, and future, and individuals, communities, and ecologies. And in this project, we use it to learn and explore the impacts of Western industrialization and overconsumption on environments, particularly those that are disappearing or lost entirely. In this work, we're marking those shared moments of transition. It's a way of acknowledging what's disappearing, while also asking how we stay accountable to country or Budja, and all the places whose futures are bound together. This project allows us to explore these emotional, ecological, sensual, and relational thresholds, and invite others to consider how we remain present with the living systems that sustain us, and how eco-smell orientations can activate a sense of agency for the future, how we stay with the trouble.
So we're Sorry, I can't see everyone right now, so I'm trusting that you can all see me. Um, so I would like to lead you through a little eco scent mapping activity. And you'll need something to write or draw with. So happy for you to use your computer if that's what you usually take notes on. However, if you have a bit of paper and a pen around, I'll just give you a moment to grab that. If we can, if I can maybe get an idea of some thumbs up, if someone can tell me if there's some thumbs up, if people are, there's a,
Yep, we're
yeah,
good to go.
great. Okay. So, as we discussed, smell is deeply connected to memory, identity, place, and emotion. So, this is a really brief activity to explore how eco scents shape our present day and how they might travel with us into the future. So, you can see the instructions up on the slide. Uh, to write or draw 3 eco-scents that hold significance for you. So they might be connected to an environment that offers you a sense of comfort or is part of your well-being, an environment that's connected to your cultural heritage or identity, or a smell that's connected to an environment that just is really important to you, that matters to you. You don't need to give full sentences. You can use words, you can use fragments of words or drawings. So I just like to give you a few minutes, probably about 5 minutes to just have a little bit of a quiet think and reflect on paper. If you already have some of those identified, and you've used words to do that. See if you can expand upon it and start to draw some of them, or write a little bit more. I've got about a minute left. Right. I hope you've had enough time to get a couple of things down. And now we're going to think about mapping the future. So you just take a moment to unfocus your eyes and just take a breath or a little shake. And then I want you to imagine 30 years ahead from now, 30 years into the future. Return to your 3 smells and consider, do these smells still exist? How have they changed, intensified, faded? Is your relationship to them different? Do they carry new meanings personally, culturally? For example, loss, adaptation, resilience, regeneration, and to think perhaps about your role in their generation. So again, you can write or draw or combine a response of writing and drawing, thinking about your connection to them and how they might evolve. So I'll give you another 4 minutes to do that. And perhaps there's just one that you really want to reflect upon and draw a bit more about, or write a bit more about. It's totally up to you. Got about another 30 seconds. All right. So I I wonder how that was for all of you. We're just about to come to our final, oh, we're there with our final thanks slide. If there's anything that you noticed in doing this activity that you'd like to share, perhaps you can put that into the chat. Um, and finally, I just wanted to read a quote that I really love from Daniel Armand, that hope is about the fact that tomorrow can be better and that you can have a part in it. Which I think is just really, really great because Tarsha and I have had lots of conversations about uh, feeling hopeful in hopelessness, and yeah, I just really wanted to share that quote with you. I'm going to pass over to Tash.
Tarsh, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Of course I am. I was being respectful. Okay, so again, thanks to Mary for inviting us to present today, and the Place Network, and you all for listening and participating. And if you would like more information about the projects and us, please check out these websites. And I noticed also that Katie has put some links into the chat, which I really appreciate. Um, and we're now happy to answer any questions and respond to comments. And if you have any, um, thank you.
So I'd like to, first of all, before anybody goes, I want to thank you very, very, very much, both of you. Thank you very much for such a wonderful, poetic, lyrical, stimulating conversation. It's just fantastic. Thank you. But I'm absolutely positive that there are some questions here that our audience would like to ask. Um, so with Katie's help, Katie and I are going to try to field some questions your way. Yeah, can you stop sharing, Tarsh, and so we can actually, yeah, there we go. Great. Thanks. So, questions? Do you have any? Yeah,
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the act of distillation in actuality or practicality, how it happens on site, because I thought that was fascinating.
Yes, great question. Also, we get that a lot, and it is super fun and fascinating, and the still itself is just beautiful. And so that distillation process is, well, steam distillation is basically like steaming your veggies, but you collect the smell from them. So the way that it works is that you put a pot of water, you heat it up, the steam passes through, or the water vapor passes through the material that you're trying to extract the smell from, whatever that is, and it warms up the volatile chemicals that cause smells. And any of those chemicals that are water soluble will dissolve into the water vapor, and they then emerge as in the steam, and then they get condensed uh, down they hit a cold water and condense like they do, like water vapor does in your bathroom, from a vapor to a liquid. And so that liquid is like the concentrated water soluble chemicals. And so when you open it, some of them are still will volatilize and you can smell them. So it's a very old process. And it was what was used to create lavender water or rose water. And this particular style of still can be used for gin production and other kinds of alcohol production, um, and was designed like 2,000 years ago, and is still being produced. This obviously is on a very small scale. It's kind of, these are hobby stills. Um, but we have cases, little kits that we take with us. I have a backpack that I take into the field. There was an image of us dragging the trolley with the still in it, and so we can then, it's a portable process. Yeah.
Great. Excellent. We had a question from Ian asking, what has been the reception of these quite delicate sometimes eco scents with the audiences and participants in workshops that you've shared them with?
Do you want to respond to that, Sue?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, it's incredibly diverse. Um, I, uh, I met someone again recently who had been to one of our workshops and had a little jar of a different fragrance, and I passed it to them, and they said, "That's not this certain plant from that I experienced distilling last time, is it?" And they had this very, very strong affective, visceral response to it. And I think that yeah, it's really beautiful. Also in that people can remove themselves from the room and the scent. They don't have to stay with it if it's particularly unpleasant. Obviously, we are careful about understanding the relationship between trauma and scent as well, and we're really mindful of how to invite people to take care of themselves in those settings. Yeah, it's been really rich and a very a very humbling experience to get to share the responses from people to those scents. Yeah.
Fantastic. We have a question from Sarah that says, well, first of all, says, so inspiring and beautiful. Thank you both for sharing your project and practice. Thank you for drawing my attention to the emotional, cultural, historical, and ecological associations with resonances with scents and their role in wider environmental ecology. Like the fugitive nature of plant pigments, the ephemeral quality is something that she's noting. There's
Yeah.
another question. There's a question here from Monica Dritchell. Hi, I really love the frozen cups with smells incorporated into them and the process of olfactory dissemination. Have you tried playing with the boundaries between the vessels used to archive the smells themselves in any other projects? Thank you for such a wonderful talk. So I think what she means is with different smells in different uh,
Yeah.
the boundaries between them. Is there something like composing smells?
Yes. So I have two responses to that. Uh, One is that I've been working with part of the thing with the ice sculptures is that um, they melt and disappear and release the scent into the atmosphere. And so you're sort of, it's kind of a time capsule in some ways that it uh, blends with whatever the scent is in the environment, that the new environment or the temporal and new temporal environment, maybe, because season is also very important, obviously. Um, but also in one of the distillation workshops that I've done separate from Sue, we had a young, I had a, I think she's 5 years old. She wanted to blend them. So she created her own blend from the distillates, which was really fun. And so she got to be a witch for a day, which was lovely. Yeah. Um, but for us, it's very important that every time it's unique, and we can't control what is produced. And um, there are certain smells that are much strong, certain botanicals that create a much stronger smell than others within the distillation. So sometimes, like eucalyptus, for example, is a very, very strong smell.
Mm.
And so sometimes we will ask people to contribute just a small amount of those kinds of things, but we try not to control that too much, I guess.
I wanted to add to that as well, Tash, that when we give people the invitation to bring some biomatter of significance to them now, for example, it might be that they don't actually have that with them. So for someone, for example, diesel was of significance because it was their partner who worked away, and that was the smell. So poetically, in the communal distillation, they just spoke those words into the communal scent, and we record obviously all the material, and other people will come by and they'll read after they've had a look at sorry, had a sniff. Sometimes they will, read what's in there, and they're like, yeah, I can really smell that diesel. It's really it's really lovely. But it's so nice for them to have that connection because they've all shared their stories in that process. So the communal smell becomes significant to the individuals who participated in it, in that blending. Yeah.
Yeah, and excellent. We have an additional note from Sarah that also speaks to something I was going to ask about. Um, Sarah added, the volatile nature of scents speaks so strongly of change, adaptation, grief, loss, etc. And that kind of aligns with my question, which is about how the sense of smell embeds as a memory in some way that is so deeply affective because it doesn't rely upon words or sight or some of our other senses. It's something that resides almost as a kind of, well, like a specialist mode of memory that is deeply connected to the scent itself. So it's like the way music works. You don't have to really completely speak about it in order to be fully immersed in it and fully affected by it as an experience. But it lays down as a memory for
Mhm.
us, specifically in the mode of the sensation. So it seems to be tied not only with the place, but who we are, what we're feeling with the time that we experience it. Do you find that?
Yeah, that has been quite a complex thing that we've sort of experienced because it absolutely does that. And when not just when places change, but also when we move places, we take that experience with us, and um, and it also changes over time. And so we may think that we remember or experience that thing again, but it may not. It may be triggered by other things as well, similar scents but I think one of the things that we have, well, that I have noticed anyway, and we've talked about is that we we have a lot of trouble naming smells. And it's a famous thing, right? But that if you haven't experienced, if you don't have an experience of a smell or a memory of a smell or that affective response, then you really have trouble locating it. And so for me, what I've noticed is that people then we try and encourage the people that we have the workshops with to make their own associations. Um, but authenticity is something that's come up quite a lot, I think, for people that um, we're not so interested in the idea of authenticity because it changes over time and all those things. But um, I think that one we're particularly interested in those sort of affective relations and how they change for people as well, and the different associations that we have with those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very complex and subtle, isn't it? It's so interwoven. We have another question from Eleanor. First of all, she thanks you both for an inspiring presentation and then says, have you found that participants in your workshops are more receptive to the kind of ecological information you shared at the beginning of the talk with petrels and orchids and so on as a result of taking part? And how, in practice, do you introduce that kind of scientific information into your sessions?
I can start with that. So really depending on the group, um, obviously we'll tailor the workshop quite often. So, for example, in a community mental health setting, I've done it with women's group, and so these are people that wouldn't necessarily, like a lot of other of our workshop participants, are already ecologically minded, quite a few of them, and it's like it's a really different exchange. And so I um, I always find it just delightful to really rely on the group's knowledge and experience to inform some of the level of the eco literacy and ecological talk that's within the group. I have found with some people though they become what they're really interested in, and I can relate to this because I am very scent orientated in my world, this like I want to say a greediness to capture a good smell or to capture a smell. So which you know we are not interested in that in particular, but yeah, there's a real difference in the groups that have the prior ecological knowledge and accepting the whatever smell comes compared to generally groups of people who are going, well, it's smell, it should be good. And it's like smell is often not good and it's really informative when it's not good too. It's serving a fantastic purpose. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, bad smells are really important for healthy ecosystems,
Right.
as the bog people would know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I also have, if I'm going to indulge, one more question, if I might. I have discovered that since COVID, I've been suffering from a really impacted reduction in my ability to discern scents. And so, I mean, I find that maybe I have a double process of grieving in a way and thinking about scent, and in that I wish I could smell as well as I used to do. And so for me, it's not even locating memories. It's about kind of taking in new scents and finding myself to be really on a reduced kind of spectrum of that ability. Do you deal with people talking about that sort of thing in your workshops? And what do you say to them?
So there's I think it's not just COVID that does that, right? I think that one of the things that COVID did was bring the the significance or the importance of smell and experiences of smell to a more, maybe even a more rational level. Maybe I don't know if that's quite the right word that I mean, but that it, instead of it being smell sensitivity or smell, um, people with heightened senses of smell aren't necessarily positioned as imagining it, maybe. Um, but I think that I don't have a very as good a sense of smell as Sue does, and there are things that she finds um, enjoyable that I really don't like. Um, and I think that there is a whole sort of pathologization or medicalization of smell since COVID, where you can retrain your sense of smell, and there's lots of different ways to do that. Um, and part of what the smell workshops do is reorient us to the participants to even considering that they could reactivate their senses of smell potentially in a place, or attend again to those places or those smells. I think that we had a person who had complete anosmia, a couple of people, right? Um, um, yeah. So I think part of what we try to do with the imagining smells is to reactivate some of that, and to also show that it is possible maybe to imagine smells. Um, I don't know how difficult you all found that, to imagine the smell of the future. Um, yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, Mary. Sorry. Sue,
Yeah.
do you have anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, I think it's also just this idea of being able to sit with people in their grief with that and not fix it. Because, a lot of people who have lost their smell have tried everything they can and they've looked up everything and they use their saline to try and increase the moisture in their environment so they can smell more, and it doesn't work. And like Tash said, yeah, obviously that the imagining part is like, well, what if, or being able to see that other people interpret the same smell differently is almost like, hey, I'm what would I like to imagine I'm smelling? Yeah, it helps contribute to that. Yeah.
Great. If you're okay to hang on for one last question, we're running just a few minutes over, but it won't be long. But Dan asked, I would like to hear more about the communal shared experiences of smells, particularly in contrast to digital life, such as this
Mm.
gathering, in which we only share at most visual and audio, since there's no olfactory button on Zoom. There is surely something important about the embodied shared space, which we lose. What might you say about this?
Yes. I agree. There's lots of work being done to digitize smell, and there are like it's a big thing in the design and VR world, particularly for gaming, to create scent digital devices. Um, I've seen attempts to create like an RGB or a Pantone system for smells as well, so that it can then be digitized, I guess. Um, I think it's super complicated, and we also digitizing smells would potentially rely on synthesized smells, which usually don't encompass the complexity of an experience. Um, but I think that there's a particular smellscape that is associated with either the room that we live in with our computers, or the computer itself, um, the food and things that get caught in the keyboards, and yeah, those kinds of things definitely are part of a digital experience still, because those spaces are still embodied experiences. But I think that there is definitely something about the communal experience of scent. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. You know, if you get stuck on the tube in rush hour, you don't want to be too close to the smell of the person next to you. Um, yeah. So do you have any thoughts about that?
I was just thinking of your experience with your cat and your laundry and the public transport.
Yes. I was on the bus and the guy next to me smelled very strongly of cat urine, and it was almost unbearable. And then he got off the bus and it stayed there, and I realized it was me, and my cat had pissed on my t-shirt, and I hadn't paid attention and just put it on. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Oh my goodness. Well, on that
On
funny
that
note,
note,
we are going to have to draw our wonderful session to a close. We could be going on and on with all sorts of discussion, and particular things about how water bears that trace of the scent. But we must draw it to a close. So we're going to thank you both very, very much for such a fascinating discussion this afternoon, and and wish you well, and hope that we can see
thank
you
you.
again another time. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks
Thank
everybody
Thank
for
you.
coming. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye.